Good evening. You are watching the MKUltra show. I, of course, as always, am your host, Carter M. Nelson. Very excited to be back with all of you tonight on Monday. Been a minute since we've done a show. I'm sorry I had to take another break at the end of last week. I had some family coming out. I went and did some stuff with them. Great time, but very, very excited to be back on the show with you guys tonight. Big show, big show. Can't disappoint. It's been too long. Can't disappoint. We got to put something great together. I will say, I'm sorry for being so late. I do apologize. I understand I'm about an hour late to tonight's show, but I try. I promise I try. But we're here. I wanted to make sure that I was able to put together something worth watching, and that caused me to, go a little bit later than I had intended. So I do apologize for that. But without a further of ado, we're going to go ahead and get into it. Our top stories tonight. Abdul El Saeed, somebody that we talked about just a couple weeks ago. We talked about the legitimate threat he has to win the Democratic primary in Michigan. And guess what he did over this last weekend? He won the primary. And we're going to get into why that's a big deal. I've already talked about my personal grievances with him and why he is a legitimate threat to conservatism and what he represents about the Democratic Party. But we're going to get into more of that tonight just because, again, he actually won the primary now. Before we were talking about, hey, this guy has a chance, could be an issue. Well, now he won it. Also, in other news, we are going to be talking more about Iran. Big news coming out of there. It's been about 11 days since the last attack. But that doesn't mean nothing's going on. In fact, oftentimes it's these stages where there isn't legitimate action, where there's the most behind the scenes work going on. Major negotiating period at the moment with Iran and Oman working to put together a deal. And also, we have the Houthis, who I talked about being a legitimate force that could cause this conflict to exponentially grow throughout the Middle East. And guess what? major assault against Saudi Arabia just days after they signed a deal with Pakistan and Turkey. So that could turn into something. We'll keep our eyes on that and talk about it a little bit tonight. But before I get into the show, I would like to ask you guys, please like and subscribe. It will greatly, greatly help the show. I hate to ask you, but kind of have to. So if you want to support the show, trust me, every little bit does more than you could possibly imagine. So I greatly appreciate it. But moving into our headliner for tonight, Abdul El Sayed. As I was saying, he actually won the Democratic primary. It was an incredibly, incredibly close race, but he ended up coming through victorious. And I am going to give a little bit of a recap since I'm sure some of you watching this didn't see the episode a couple weeks back where we talked about who he is. But essentially, he is a very democratic, socialist aligned individual. Now, when I say that, he is not actually a democratic socialist. He is not part of that organization, but he does support a number of the same proposals on certain issues as the DSA does. And to even further his connection, he was endorsed by both AOC and Bernie Sanders. So, what does this mean? Well, it is a greater reflection of what we've been discussing and tracking over the last couple weeks, pretty much throughout the entirety of this show. We've been talking about the DSA and how they are growing across the country, really having a incredibly successful takeover of the Democratic Party. And how are they doing this? Well, they've managed to take hold of the Israel issue. The Israel issue, which I must say was made popular by the far right, the right-wing nationalists, but the GOP is too incompetent to notice this. But the DSA, on the other hand, grabbed a hold over this issue and pretty much said, look, we're going to be your guys to get us out of Israel, get us out of the Middle East, to put America first. However, we all understand the DSA version of America first is nowhere near that. And that is pretty evident from the candidates they're running. I mean, Zohran Mamdani, Abdul El Sayed, the woman who just won the first district of Denver. I forget her name, but another immigrant. They're running these non-American candidates to try to capture the non-American vote, the Muslim sympathetic vote, the anti-Israel vote. All of these things, they're putting them all together. They're bundling them up into a nice little care package for the voters. But the truth is, they don't actually give a shit about getting out of Israel. What they don't like is that Netanyahu is a right wing, it's technically a right wing government under Netanyahu. And obviously, you guys all know I in no way support Israel, but I don't believe that the DSA actually cares about this issue. I don't believe they'll actually do anything about it. I fully expect them to take advantage of being the only ones willing to talk about the issue, destroy the Democratic establishment by doing so, take over, and then essentially just say our hands are tied. And many of these people, they were lifelong Israel supporters. They backed Israel. They said they were a great ally. But then the Palestine thing blows up all of a sudden out of nowhere. Everybody knows about it, and the DSA is trying to take advantage of it, capture lightning in a bottle, which they're doing incredibly successfully. It's something that the right wing, the populist right, really should be trying to do on the other end of things. The fact that we aren't capturing this lightning in the bottle is incredibly unfortunate. And the reason that we haven't been able to do so is because it's a right wing government at the top right now. So, because the DSA captured it while they were the minority, while the Democrats took advantage of this, while they were the minority party, they were able to disalign themselves with Israel despite being an overall very pro Israel party, just like the Republicans. They captured it because they lost the 2024 election. Losing that election may have been one of the best things to ever happen to the non establishment left because it allowed them to play the underdog role. while the guys on the right wing, who are just as, if not likely, more anti Israel, they haven't been able to align themselves with that because the Republican and conservative party, that idea, it's been conjoined with Israel. Israeli interests are now considered the interest of Republicans instead of the interest of the entire US government, which is the true case. But the Democrats have taken advantage of this. And that's why they're able to get candidates like Abdul El Said, somebody who believes in the complete abolishment of ICE, Medicare for all, pretty left wing principles. He's able to win that vote because he is anti Israel, and that is a growing issue. What I think this also represents is the Democrats pushing further and further to the point where now that they've gotten so many immigrants from other countries in, they're able to utilize those votes. This has been something that has been tracked for a very long time. What do you think white replacement theory is? It's exactly what we're seeing. This is the goal of it. Basically, mix everybody together, turn America into not just a European melting pot as it was before, but a complete multicultural society, and then take advantage of all the minority cultures by bringing enough of them in to truly sway a vote. And that's what we're seeing in Michigan. So this is something I talked about a few weeks ago, was that the Democrats were being forced into a decision. Do we run the establishment candidate in a very important swing state, an incredibly crucial swing state? Because a little bit more likable, a little bit more connected with the citizens, you know, while on the other hand, you have the non establishment candidate who is better capturing the anti Israeli craze, but also, very importantly, and this is something that should not be missed, is a Muslim himself. And why is that important? Well, the Democrats had to choose if he was worth running because of the Muslim population in Michigan. We have cities like Hamtramck. I'm almost certainly mispronouncing that, so my apologies. But it's an over 50% city, 50% Muslim city in Michigan. Michigan, United States, as a city with over 50% Muslim population. We also have Dearborn, Michigan, something we've talked about, with 41% Muslim population. Big deal. Big deal. They are starting to realize, or the realization is starting to set in, that their work is paying off. Their goal of bringing in non-whites, pushing the white people out of these different urban and suburban sectors, now they've made these basically blobs of minorities that they can harvest votes from. That's the entire goal. That's why they've done it. That's why they want to get rid of ICE. That's why they don't want strong border control. That's why Biden let in so many immigrants on the southern border. It was all entirely part of this plan to make these centers that would completely vote blue consistently. And then how do they ensure that they can take advantage of that vote? Because you have to remember, most of these Muslims, they believe in things like Sharia law, right? Which is much more conservative than the most conservative Christian you'll ever find, I will say. Because it's to the point where it's like sick, disgusting, and barbaric. So it's, how does the Progressive Party still take advantage of that? Well, they say we will be the voice for your culture too. We will accept all culture. Obviously, that's not really the case. The left wing establishment entirely has the goal of just overly liberalized society where it's everybody does whatever the fuck they want all the time. So, what are they doing? They are saying, look, your culture is being listened to in our party. We are running the Muslim candidate. We are running this guy, and it's entirely, almost entirely, and quite obviously to anybody paying attention, to achieve the Islamic vote of Michigan, a state which Trump grabbed. And a big reason Trump grabbed it was because the Democrats lost the Muslim vote to Trump in Michigan, a vote that the Democrats pretty much can't counted on. So now they're switching up their strategy and they're saying, hey, we'll run somebody that looks like you in order for you to vote for us. This is basically the the vision of everything that they've been trying to put together. This is them saying, look, we finally did it. We got the white people dispersed. We are finally lowering their impact on the vote because white people drastically across the board vote right wing, even more so white men. Why do you think that the liberals try to put down white men so much? Because non-feminized men consistently vote with the right. This is something that we've seen very, very consistently. So, what's the goal? Feminize the white men, radicalize the white men, women against the men, and bring in all these non-whites to basically have secured votes. And what Abdul El Sayed represents, this far left candidate, this candidate who had donor issues, something that we talked about previously, where he had activists donating to him who were openly advocating for Maduro's government. Yeah, that's a real thing. One of his donors was an activist supporting Maduro. So, yeah, this is basically the culmination of that strategy, and it's paying off because now they're able to push the curtain even further to the left. And that's what happens when you have such an unpopular right wing government. This is why sometimes it's better to lose elections. Like, what did the Democrats have to go through from losing the election to Trump? Almost nothing. We didn't throw any of them in jail. We have failed to realize mass deportations. Our own guys were sending to jail that we arrested the Tate brothers. Like, it's a joke. Nothing's gotten better for us. Oil prices are sky high. Nothing got better for the right wing under Trump. Everything got better for the left wing under Trump because Trump was incompetent. It's almost better to lose to an incompetent leader on the opposing party because that's the easiest way to move the curtain to the other side. That's the easiest way to do it. It reveals opportunity. People become so unhappy that they go to the extremes of the other side. I mean, we lost Kirk under the Trump administration. What have we gotten? What have we gotten? I beg you. I beg you. What have we gotten? We won nothing. We won the election and nothing that we wanted to happen happened. There's no wall. Trump said that was never going to happen. Come on, man. Come on. We didn't win. The Democrats won by Trump winning. And that's the issue. This is why if we don't have a good candidate in 2028, there's a legitimate argument that we vote blue. Do we allow them to run the country so poorly that we can start running these far right candidates as the DSA has been able to do? So that's where that argument comes from. Do we go and vote for the incompetent left wing president and allow him to fuck up so much that we can win big time in 2032? So we'll see. Long strategy. Political game, long strategy. But moving on from that, we're going to get into the Iran war. So it has been 11 days since the last attack. The last strike was at the end of July. I believe it was July 30th or July 31st. And now we're kind of into this negotiating period. And what we've seen happen is Trump was threatening to escalate, Iran calling the bluff. Nothing really happened between that. Trump said he'd back off to open the negotiating table. And what we've seen, it isn't necessarily looking good. We haven't seen any progress to a legitimate Iran US peace deal. Because the issue is, Iran is saying, we'll open the strait, but we get to control it, and we want reparations for the damage you've done to our country. Because you have to remember, we destroyed their entire government, we killed all of their top guys, we've destroyed a significant amount of infrastructure, destroyed a great deal of their military equipment, and there has been a significant toll on the loss of life. And on the other hand, the US is saying, well, we want the strait to be uncontrolled. Essentially, they want free traffic throughout the Strait of Hormuz. But the US is also saying, hey, we also need reparations because not only have we lost life in this conflict, but your insurgents have been killing American soldiers for over 2 decades now. So we also need reparations for all of that. And both sides are saying, no, we're not going to pay you for going to war with us. Both sides are basically going head to head, arguing who owes who reparations. And it's a zero sum game. Nothing's going to come of that. There's no way it can. And both sides are pretty firm on their position over Hormuz, where Iran has made it incredibly clear, look, we left it open, you attacked us, you bombed us, we're going to control it. We will put a tax on the oil that moves in and out, and we may not let Israeli or US ships through because they're a legitimate threat. So there's just no winning game for either side. Nobody can agree because they are so firm on the most important point, which is the strait, and both parties feel as though that they need reparations or they look weak to the rest of the world, which is unequivocally true. It is important. That's why I've been talking about how there's no easy way out of this conflict. It's because it's because neither side can back down here. Iran feels that they've gotten the US into a pinch where our economy is starting to severely struggle. Our oil reserves aren't looking too hot. We are in no way energy independent and can't reach that in some miracle time. So we rely on that strait getting open. And they're saying, hey, how long are you willing to play this game? Because you can keep killing our guys and we don't care. And on the other hand, the US is saying, well, we can't lose a conflict that we started with Iran. We can't go to war with Iran and have this open strait and leave it with Iran owning the strait. Even if Iran was to pay us reparations for that, that's still a loss for us because there's no way that we can start a conflict and say, yeah, you guys now get to control this. It's just such a major diplomatic and geopolitical loss for the United States if we were to allow that to happen. So there's no way. But Iran, they are doing everything they can to negotiate themselves into a position where they control the strait, which is what we are seeing with the Oman Iran deal, which both parties are reportedly getting closer and closer to closing. And what this deal says is Iran will control the traffic coming in, and Oman will control a portion of the traffic coming out. So all the traffic coming in will use the Iran coast, use their controlled half of the strait, and then a portion, at, at minimum, a portion of the traffic will use the Omani route. And what they're saying is Iran is discussing to have a 5 to 7% price of excuse me, a 5 to 7% pay based off of the price of the cargo from the ships using the strait. And this is coming from a Reuters report. Oman is discussing around a 3%. And on the other hand, Washington's saying you don't get anything. This strait has to remain completely fair use across the globe. You don't get to say who comes in, who comes out. You don't get to charge people for going in and out because it's such an oil critical transit route. And giving them control and giving them leverage with price control over that strait, it just gives Iran so much of a geopolitical leverage over the rest of the world, and it greatly improves their position in the balance of power over the Middle East. So that's where we're at with that. Iran's talking to Oman, trying to put together this deal where Iran will control the strait. They will control who gets to go in, which gives them much more power over Oman, who simply gets to put a tariff on those coming out. I don't know if tariff is technically the right term, but we're using it anyways. So that's the situation going on with that. But we're not done with the Iran war yet. No, no, don't fret. There's plenty more to talk about. I could probably do this all night. But we have the Houthis of Yemen something we've been talking about a great deal, talking about how they could significantly disrupt the conflict, which they did when they closed down the Al Memdeba Strait. Big deal with that could put us into a major recession. Started shooting at ships going through there, destroy another major strait because of the east west pipeline going through Saudi Arabia. And the Houthis are very, very anti Saudi Arabia because the Saudis assisted the Yemen government, their official government, their recognized government, in their civil war. And I also talked about how their grievances with Saudi Arabia and the early strikes we saw could result in this conflict growing beyond just the Gulf states. Well, here's what we've seen. The Houthis have attacked Saudi Aramco's Jazan refinery. They said on Sunday, 2 days after the kingdom signed a defense pact with Turkey and Pakistan in response to growing regional instability from the US Israeli war on Iran. So not only does this open the legitimate question, is Saudi Arabia going to be drawn into the conflict against the Houthis? Maybe not directly with Iran, but with the Iran insurgent Houthi group, which signs are pointing towards because Saudi Arabia is mounting a ground force to push into potentially the Houthi controlled region of Yemen. But it also begs the question, could this draw Turkey and Pakistan in eventually? Could the Houthi and Saudi conflict grow to a point where this brand new defensive pact between Turkey and Pakistan, could that bring those legitimately major powers into this conflict? And we've been talking with the Turks. The United States is growing relations with the Turks right now. So, could this grow? Could this expand the conflict? Not right away, not necessarily. It's not going to be an immediate thing. I in no way expect Turkey and Pakistan to all of a sudden invade Houthi controlled Yemen alongside the Saudi Arabians. A big part of that is this deal is so fresh. Again, it's been just 2 days. But if a conflict between the Houthis and Saudis grows, this could mean two things. One, it's testing what this defensive pact actually means. How are they going to support one another? And how willing will they actually be to join a conflict? Because what this defensive pact actually says is an attack on one of these three nations will be considered an attack on all three. So, based off that, you'd imagine all three would almost be forced to mount an assault to back what this pact says, but I doubt that to come immediately. But it could open the question, how strong is this pact? Where can it go? What kind of support will these countries be willing to give another, this triad? And worst case scenario, what could happen is a Houthi Saudi conflict legitimately arises, which could be a legitimate boots on ground type of conflict. Remember, these two countries border each other, and that could result in Turkey and Pakistan eventually joining in on a conflict against an Iranian insurgent group. A group which is, and to this day is, strongly supported by the Iranian government, which could blow up. This could be bad. This could pull all three of these nations into the conflict with Iran. So, big stuff there. I don't expect these three nations to go into a conflict with Iran, but it is something definitely worth keeping your eye on. Things are blowing up, they're going big. So give your dream manic pixie dream girl her one last kiss or whatever you have to do and get on the battlefield is. Oh man, this could blow up. Say your goodbyes, put your things in order. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm over exaggerating. It's okay. It's okay. Don't fret. But yeah, that's the situation we have gotten to. But yeah, I'm going to start wrapping up the show now. If you guys have any questions for me before I get off air, please put them in the chat now. I will respond to those. We will do a quick recap. One, we have Abdul El Said winning Michigan, a DSA aligned candidate. a candidate who is on the extremities of the left wing, who won because of a major Muslim population in Michigan. Only reason the Democrats even ran him. So, yeah, not good there. It's pretty much the culmination of everything we've been talking about with this crazy white replacement theory that is obviously fake. How could that be real? Why would anybody want to do that? I have no idea. Maybe to run whoever they want and get a guaranteed win by playing on to the cultural significance of the minority groups that they've thrown into these regions by dissolving the white vote. Hmm. That would be crazy, though. That's just a theory. That's stupid. Who would want to do that? Yeah, right. Also, we have the Iran conflict in a negotiating stage. US and Iran butting heads, nothing seemingly happening there. No progress is actually legitimately being made based off of our understanding, and Oman and Iran are trying to sneak one over to control the strait, and the Houthis are in a position to blow up this conflict on a much greater regional scale. So, yeah, fun times there. But thank you guys so much for watching. It was a great show. So happy to be with you tonight. I apologize again for being so late. I promise to be on time tomorrow unless I'm not. Sorry again ahead of time, or maybe I'll be early. Sometimes I am. Who really knows? But 8 p.m. Mountain Central Time, Monday through Friday. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed and don't want to miss a show. It does more than you could possibly imagine, so I greatly appreciate it. And that's all I have for you tonight. So long, peace out, and God bless y'all.